Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Michelle here. I have a nice video for you, something a little bit different. In this video, I'm going to take you along the journey that I had. This footage was filmed in maybe 2020. I'm just now posting it, putting it all together and putting it out there for you, my audience. So thank you. If you are one of my subscribers, I'd like to thank you and welcome you back. And if you're not, if you're interested in all things wedding gown couture, whether it's sewing, education, or just fashion design and historic bridal wear, follow along or like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you would like to see more videos such as this. So let's talk about this Edwardian style or Victorian style. I don't know which one. The term, I guess, is used interchangeably. But let's get into it. So I'm going to take you first along with me as I examine this coat and skirt made of velvet, luscious velvet fabric that was done in the 1890s and worn by the young lady in that photo that just passed. She actually got married in this dress, and I think she was not like 18, 19 years old. She was maybe around in her 30s, I guess, a late bride. And this is what she wore for her wedding. The gown is in a museum, Homestead Museum in New Jersey. And the reason why I've been asked to record or remake this dress is because it was badly damaged by the sun. So here we go. Follow along. I'm going to take you on my journey. We're going to discuss the inner workings of the dress, and I'll take you along with some of the pattern making processes in order to come up with a finished replicated design. And before we get started, if you're interested in learning more about bridal couture and bridal design, I have a course, Bridal Couture Academy.teachable.com. You can go ahead and register for Bridal Couture Made Easy. Now let's get started. So in this clip, what you see is myself and my assistant having the dress on the dress form. I mean, look at this beauty. We are examining it. So we notice the Victorian glass buttons down the sleeve. And right now, you see me just handling the inner workings of the garment. So you'll see on this dress repeatedly there are bound sleeves, bound seams, and they use like a twill tape, which is hand sewn to each seam, each cut edge of the garment. So that I was very interesting. You'll see those buttons. There are many buttons going down the front of the dress, which made it look extremely beautiful. You also see I have pin lines along the seams, and those pins are indicators for where I'm going to trace and rub off the pattern. And in this clip, you'll see to the right, that is the fabric that I found to use. It is a velvet. However, the velvet is a little bit softer than that of the original dress. And you'll see the glass beads again. I'm so fascinated by those. We did not find those for our replicated design. We found, I think, like a plastic, almost vintage looking button. I keep calling them beads because they're glass, but they are buttons. And we use those. We didn't want to remove the original buttons and use those buttons for the replicated design. So in this garment, there's a lot of hand stitching, slip stitching. The buttons are sewn by hand and connected. And that's how we sew on buttons when we're adding bridal buttons down, usually down the back of the full length the back of a wedding gown. We use that same technique even today. So I'm still looking inside for more goodies. And there is a stay tape or a stay tab along the waistline, which you'll also see in modern bridal gowns today. That stay tape is usually used to cinch in the waist, but you'll usually find that tape on the back of modern gowns. The collar is lined and hand stitched along the edge. There's so much hand stitching in this garment. The shoulder seams are sewn with the machine. A treadle machine was used back in that era. Like no electricity, like kind of like you use like a pumping action with your foot to sew. So some of the seams are done on a machine, like side seams. The seams that would require more stress, except for the armhole. The armhole was done with a running stitch, and you'll see that in couture or more expensive garments today, where they use hand sewing to set in a sleeve, because you can control it a little better, especially if you're matching seam lines. Plus, this garment is made of velvet, which is very slippery and difficult to sew. The cuff had like lace on there, and I guess this thick canvas band, the lace was applied to that band, which with long basting threads, which can be removed, I guess, for cleaning. Look at the inside of this garment. The inside is even inspiration for some type of a gown. I think maybe down the line, maybe I could challenge myself in doing a beautiful, beautiful gown, kind of similar to that, showing like the outside seam lines, because my goal when I'm creating garments is, and my rule of thumb, even when I'm teaching, is to make sure your insides are done as perfect and as couture as your outside. So your inside, you want to look as beautiful as the outside. Back then, they made garments to last. Now, I understand we have fast fashion, so sometimes people aren't as concerned. But if you're making a beautiful piece and you want it to have for a long time, maybe package it up and save it for maybe your daughter, your granddaughter, or whoever, I would say make your garments to last. Buy the best materials possible so that you can pull those garments out later down. And someone like me can examine your garment maybe 100 years from now. That would be fun. So the boning inside, they use well boning. So they boned each side seam at the waist, and there are several, maybe 6, I'm guessing 6 seams, vertical seams, and it causes that waist to stay up nicely. We use boning in our garments today. Back then they used well bones before using the metal and plastic bones. The buttonholes are all hand sewn, hand drawn buttonholes. This mannequin is a size 4, so you can see I can't even close the garment. I think the waist of this was maybe 28 inches. As you can see, the curve in the sleeve, that is the pattern. You'll see the pattern a little bit later on, the completed pattern. But I love the shape of this garment. I feel like this garment can even be worn today. Taking measurements for the collar. As you can see, the collar is pinned down to my tailor's board, and I'm measuring and taking muslin. I already have my pin marks where I can just take a pencil and rub off in the crevices of the seams, and in order to take a pattern. In that pattern, the original pattern, the coat, is laid down as flat as possible. And this is, again, called the rub-off process. I will be doing each piece, but for this video, I will only demonstrate the collar. Obviously, if I was to do each piece, this video would be like 10 times as long. So we don't want that. But I'm just showing you, giving you an idea of if you come across a design, a vintage design or a thrifted design, and you want to pretty much copy it and make the style for yourself. There are no copyright laws in the United States, just to give you that heads up. But you can copy garments, and if you want to tweak it and make it your own, then that's fine as well. But here I'm using my ruler and just going along the shape of the rub off garment, just going along the shape, the curve, the neckline, and I'll be adding the seam lines and creating a paper pattern. So that is pretty much the process. On the shoulder there is a notch just to identify the shoulder seams, and because once that pattern is taken away from that garment and that garment is sent back, I would have to know how to put that pattern back together again. So I'm using different rulers just to get a nice shape. So some will be straight, some curved, and some will be freehand. If I can't find a shaped ruler, I'll just freehand it. As you see now, I am connecting the dots. Labeling the pattern piece. That will be the collar. And there's probably an upper collar and under collar. Sometimes those are different pattern shapes. The under collar could be a little bit smaller so that it will roll nicely once it's constructed. I am now cutting out the muslin piece, removing the pins from the coat because I don't want the pins to cause any type of pulling. And I'm just looking and examining, just making sure I got everything covered. So when I add the seam allowance, I'll know exactly where the seam allowance will go. In some pattern pieces, you won't get like this standard 1/2 inch all the way around. It looks like this pattern piece, it could be a 1/2 inch, but then it's hand sewn. The lining is hand sewn. So the lining is cut probably a little bit smaller. Now here we go with the paper pattern. So this is that grid pattern making paper that you can't find everywhere. I realized I thought everybody would have this, but when I traveled to South Africa, I tried to look for it. They sell like paper sheets, just plain paper sheets as their pattern making paper, and I wasn't able to find this paper. So if you have tissue paper or brown paper, then that's fine for creating patterns as well. So I'm taking my measurement just to see how much seam allowance I'll be needing for this garment, for this collar actually. So you're double checking. It's fun to me. I love pattern making. When I was in school, I thought I would want to be a pattern maker in New York City because I love pattern making. Now I understand a lot of pattern making is done on the computer, but it's nice to be able to have the understanding of technical pattern making that's done by hand. You need to understand pattern pieces and shape before even attempting to learn how to do pattern making on a computer. That's my opinion anyway. And here we go, adding our seam allowance. Looks like about maybe 3/8 of an inch or 5/8 of an inch. And so we're looking at the coat again. Just one more look at the coat. We didn't talk about the hemline. The hemline is one of those double folded hems. There's no interfacing or horsehair or anything inside that hem. It is double folded just to kind of give it weight. The front is lined and mitered. As you can see, I'm trying to separate, but there is no interfacing, obviously. And the double fold, the purpose of the double fold hem is to give it weight, to weigh it down. But let's talk about the skirt. Oh my God, the skirt's so beautiful. Look at the pleating. It's not evenly pleated at the bottom of the yoke. But this skirt is made very well. There's hardly any damage, obviously, because it was covered by the coat. So you see that opening, almost like keyhole opening. You see the bottom box pleats. They're not inverted, but they're going the opposite way. And the skirt has no side seams, but almost like princess seams in the front and the back, and just plain at the side. And there's like one pocket on the skirt. And as you can see on me, I'm having fun with this skirt. There is a seam at the yoke, a center seam at the yoke, which is kind of strange, but that's what they decided to do. And I'm now just looking at the intricacies of this garment, which this is like and it is box pleated, and the box pleats are tacked. You can see my fingers at these intervals, and that's where they're tacked by hand. Inside of where I'm looking now it's all hand sewn. So it's tacked, and then there is a dust ruffle as well to protect the dress when the lady walks outside, because the roads were not paved like we have today. They were very dusty. And even the dust ruffle, although you can't see it, is decorated with a beautiful lace trim. And I would imagine it's probably made of a linen. The yoke of the skirt is lined and hand-drawn buttonhole and one button on the skirt. And it, again, that center seam, it is ripped. That's like the only damage that I've seen on this skirt so far is the ripping there. And again, the skirt is in very good condition. So here I am now. I'm prepping for the draping or the rub-off process on the jacket. So I've measured already, and I'm ripping just a triangular piece so I can prepare to drape that on top of the garment. And I'm taking my measurements, and here's a sketch of just my notes and measurements of the garment, and the sketch as well. It's just giving me a guideline of steps in the order of making the garment. It's better to write it down. And now I'm on my tailor's board with the jacket all pinned out along the seam lines, just to prepare for the draping and again the rubbing off process, which is very tedious. You can see why I'm replicating this jacket. As you can see, it's very badly damaged. As I was handling it, in some parts I can hear like a rip part. It almost sounded like ripping of paper, because the fabric in some areas are so dry rotted. Making sure the pins are in place. And this is, again, it's a very tedious tedious process. But in the end, I have a beautiful pattern, and that pattern actually can be used, and I could make replicated designs with that pattern. Now that the muslin is on top of the garment, we are making our pleats. We're pleating out or mapping out our pleats and our darts. I'm only showing the pleated part because this dress is pretty big, so I want to show up close a little bit of the process. Obviously, there's much more. So I did the pleat in the back, and this is like, it looked like a dart, but it is a pleat that will be an inverted pleat. Both pleats are inverted pleats. So the pleat at the back center seam is inverted, and this one is inverted as well. Oh, now here is the scarf. This is the original scarf. Just to show you how I was able to replicate. So I took the measurement, and on the mannequin to your right is that the original? Yeah, that's the original. Now this is the replicated on Isabel. This is Isabel wearing the replicated scarf. And I'm laying it out and examining it. The scarf was in pretty good shape as well. So a lot of the garment was pretty good. Oh, the lace is beautiful. And here are my notes again. We're down to the wire. And my beautiful pattern. So all my pattern pieces are ready, along with my notes to prepare for constructing this wonderful garment. It's such a tedious process. I did not record the sewing process because I feel like I needed to really focus and concentrate, because I was on a bit of a time crunch in getting that garment completed and back to the museum. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to do like the hand-drawn buttonholes and the interlining and a lot of the handwork inside, because again, I was on a time crunch. But you can see the pattern pieces. Oh, and now I remember the sleeve was a 2-piece sleeve, very nice. And this is Isabel, my granddaughter, who was the smallest one in the studio at the time. She is modeling the finished garment. As you can see, it drapes and hangs a little bit more because I think this velvet is a little heavier than the original, a little heavier and softer. Here is the replicated lace scarf. Beautiful. She's smiling. This was 4 years ago. So she's almost 18 now. But again, she was the smallest thing in the shop, so she got to model this beauty for us. I hope you enjoy the video. If you made it this far, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I would like to get to 100 subscribers by maybe in 3 weeks. Right now I have 30, and I would like to thank my 30 subscribers. But let's get this channel moving. Let's get it to 100 in about 2 or 3 weeks. I would like to see 100 subscribers. So thank you again for joining, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Goodbye.